Thonites. Welcome to episode 4 of my Honda-thon. Before I get started with the intro, I want to apologize for my hiatus. I meant to do more episodes of this earlier in the week, but with the Super Bowl coming around the corner, my week was just so swamped with work, it was just not even funny. So I've had to postpone a few episodes of my Honda-thon, particularly with KPF and Movie Buff Productions. So that's why I've been gone, but thankfully another opportunity has arisen. Today I will be reviewing the somewhat infamous, looked down upon, yet some people also say it's an underrated gem, kaiju movie, 1967's King Kong Escapes. Joining me today for this very special occasion is one of my absolute favorite YouTubers, a close personal friend of mine, and probably the biggest King Kong fan that I have ever known and who probably lives on this planet. Jack Buchanan from BigJackFilms Studios. Say hello, Jackie boy.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. I'm delighted to be a part of this episode, given I'm a huge King Kong fan. And I haven't reviewed this movie in 5 years, so it's going to be good to kind of rehash on it.
I know, right? That's why I had you review this. Like, when I first started my plans for my Honda-thon, I said to myself, I gotta have Jackie Boy on this, some way, shape, or form.
Oh yeah, I'm all about the Kong stuff. So you just fire away, buddy.
For some fucking reason that you like Kong over Godzilla, blasphemy.
Oh, I'm sorry, I've been a fan of Kong for years. So.
Okay, so before we get to the plot, I want to talk about our histories with King Kong Escapes. Go ahead, Jack. Like, what's your personal history with King? Go ahead.
I mostly started with King Kong Escapes. The first time I really watched it was for my Kong reviews because I kind of just didn't avoided it for so long, and on top of that, it was just kind of like a movie I could never get a hand on, like I could never get my hands on, and really, before I started doing the show back in 2013, I decided to order as many Kong films as I could and watch them all. And watching the film, because I always used to watch, like as a kid, I used to watch the crap out of King Kong versus Godzilla. Yeah. And that was a film I remember fondly as a kid. It was actually kind of my first Godzilla movie, I think, aside from Godzilla 98. That was my first kind of introduction to the character in terms of the Japanese Toho stuff. So eventually, yeah, I got to watching King Kong Escapes, and it's really hard to categorize this as a good King Kong film in my perspective.
I agree.
I think, honestly, it feels like if King Kong was written by the people who did the 60s Batman show. You know, it feels like that kind of
that is a good way of putting it.
Kind of, exactly. You feel like they're going to start going, you know, da-na-na-na-na-na-na King Kong. You know, you expect him to have a psychic or something.
It's so terrible.
It's so campy. And it's really cheesy. I like Mecha Kong, but for the most part, it just, in terms of being a proper Kong movie, the tone just doesn't work here. And again, it was the 60s, but, like, come on, you could do better. Hammer was going to do a King Kong remake back then, and they were going to take it more seriously.
Yeah, this movie definitely does have an interesting production history, which I'll get into momentarily. But my history with King Kong Escapes, I'm not going to lie, it kind of mirrors Adam Noyes' history with King Kong Escapes. It's not quite like his, but so my history with King Kong Escapes, me, my mom, and my stepdad used to live in a duplex. Well, we still live in a duplex, but they used to live in a duplex that was near my old high school. And my stepdad had this book. I guess it was about the history of King Kong and various King Kong ripoffs leading up to I think it was the ripoff trilogy from the 70s that which tried to cash in on the 76 remake.
Yeah, the three knockoffs for that were Queen Kong, Mighty Peking Man, and Korea's Ape.
Yes, all three are crap. Well, Mighty Peking Man's kind of fun, but all of them are crap.
Well, Mighty Peking Man is the best one because, like, it was later re-released by Quentin Tarantino in 1999, and Siskel and Ebert gave it 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, for some reason. Because I don't like...
It's an okay ripoff.
Anyway, so I was reading this book, and of course, one of the subjects that was being talked about was this movie called King Kong Escapes. And I saw this photo in the book. It wasn't a thin book or a thick book. It was only about that thick, but it was a big one. It was about this tall, and there was a big photo, a black and white photo in there of Kong fighting Mecha Kong atop Tokyo Tower with all these humans and fire and explosions below them. And I was looking at this photograph. I would study it for hours upon end. And I kept rereading the synopsis of the plot, and I kept building this epic image in my mind. I was wondering, I would love to see this movie because this sounds really fucking good. And when I was either 13 or 14 for Christmas, I had gotten a pretty decent sum of money, and I decided to go on Amazon and go on a big shopping spree. This was this Christmas that not only did I buy King Kong Escapes, well, not this Christmas specifically, but it was that Christmas that I was talking about, where not only did I buy King Kong Escapes, but I also bought the double pack of Rodan and War of the Gargantuas. So, I mean, you could probably tell that I was in a big kaiju mood that year. The first movie I got, I believe, was King Kong Escapes. And I was so excited when I got the disc. I was freaking out. Oh my god, I'm going to watch King Kong Escapes. I'm going to see King Kong fight Mecha Kong. So I popped this movie in. We got pizza that night. It was two large pepperonis from Papa Murphy's. And I had an entire pepperoni to myself. So I sat down with my giant-ass pizza, which I swallowed in less than 2 bites, and I watched King Kong Escapes.
That's funny.
And boy, was it a letdown. Boy, was it a letdown. Oh my...
I could just imagine Mr. Plinkett. Like, you're just like the Mr. Plinkett. It's like, King Kong Escapes is the most disappointing thing since my son. You just imagine it being like, oh, you spend all this money on pizza, you're going to have a great time watching this movie, and then it's like, wow, I got ripped off.
Oh my god. This movie is just a complete piece of crap. It's fun.
It's bad. Boy, as a man who has seen every Kong film imaginable,
including 2 porns,
some of the worst pieces of shit I've ever seen on film, King Kong Escapes makes a lot of these films look like Citizen Kane.
Agreed, yes, but damn, was this movie the biggest letdown. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate this movie. It's not one of my least favorite kaiju movies ever made. There's things about it that I like, and as nowhere near as much of a King Kong fan as I am a Godzilla fan, but as a King Kong fan, there's really only one Kong movie that I legitimately do not like. Having not seen King Kong Lives still, nor do I plan to. There's only one Kong movie that I can legitimately say that I do not like and I do not enjoy watching, and that's King Kong vs. Godzilla. But in the general scope of Kong movies being ranked from best to worst, best is Kong Skull Island, and worst is King Kong vs. Godzilla. It barely beats 33 and Son of Kong for me.
Yeah, it's for me it's one of the lower ranking films. I prefer my personal favorite Kong films are 33 and 76. And that's mostly due to the fact that I can't decide which one is better. I do find that the Peter Jackson film is great, but I always say it's not as good as the first draft, and I mean that to a T because the first draft was a much better film. and Kong Skull Island, which was probably the best movie of last year. But on top
got
of
competition.
that, it was just like it was just a fun monster movie, and we're finally gonna get that rematch with Godzilla and Kong. And but like other films, I mean, you know what? I'll even say this: King Kong Lives is better than King Kong Escapes. King Kong
I wouldn't quite
Lives
say that.
No, man. Because at least King Kong Lives feels like a Kong movie, whereas this feels like something you would see on, like, you know, in a comic book movie.
Well, the production history of King Kong Escapes is pretty interesting. For some reason, Toho wanted to make a King Kong movie really bad for a long time at this time. The first attempt of Toho to make a Kong movie... Well, actually, no.
Well, I actually want to stop you there, because the first attempt Japan ever did at a King Kong movie...
was Kong vs. Frankenstein.
Was actually in 1933,
oh, yeah,
when
that's
the
right.
original came out, and there was the iconic film Wasai Kingu Kongu, which tells the story of two guys wanting to be in showbiz, so they do a stage production of King Kong. The second one they did, which was King Kong Appears in Edo, takes place in feudal Japan and has Kong become giant and small. Sadly, these two films were apparently lost during the bombings of Hiroshima in a film vault down in those areas. So they are actually considered the first kaiju films that predate Godzilla.
And they no longer exist. Okay, so let me correct myself.
Except for a few photos.
The first post World War II attempts at Toho to make Kong movies were obviously we have King Kong vs. Godzilla in 1962. The original script of that, to my knowledge, was supposed to be King Kong vs. Frankenstein, where it had a roughly about 20-foot tall King Kong fighting a 20-foot tall Frankenstein-esque monster. But Toho lost the rights to Frankenstein, and they decided to change Frankenstein. No. They lost the rights to Kong, then changed Kong to Godzilla, so they tried to make Godzilla vs. Frankenstein. Then they got the rights to Kong back, but then they lost the rights to Frankenstein, so they ended up making King Kong vs. Godzilla. Then without...
And that led to the great Willis O'Brien. Flying over both apart.
Yeah. And so without not wasting the idea, Toho decided to make Frankenstein vs. Baragon in 1965 because they managed to get the... Hey, Justin Tang is here. Hello. They decided to get... they got the rights to Frankenstein back. Yes, I'm going out of order again, Justin. Yes, I know that this review is supposed to be the H-Man, but like I said, I had to postpone that. But anyway, they got the rights to Frankenstein back, and they decided to make... Your camera went out.
Shit. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Actually, your audio is a little better now. Just leave it this way. It's fine. Anyway,
okay, that's good.
So they made Frankenstein vs. Baragon, and then War of the Gargantuas. So they got the rights to King Kong back, and Toho went to Rankin Bass. And
yeah, of all people, Rankin Bass, the people who made those really choppy stop-motion animated films like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
Those are fun, though.
They're fun, but, I mean, like, I do find there's some crudeness to them.
Yes.
Although Rankin Bass is their highest-rated work to date is The Last Unicorn, which, if you haven't seen that, if all of you haven't seen that film, that is one of the greatest fantasy films ever made.
Legend comes to mind, and I know you just got done watching that for some fucking reason.
I just got done watching that, but The Last Unicorn is a great film.
Not The Last Dinosaur, Justin Tang asks. Oh, that's a terrible movie. Ugh.
Yeah,
so,
I love how they, like, it's almost like they used the Gorosaurus costume after it had completely expired.
Yes. Anyway, so Rankin Bass had a successful, for some reason, TV series going at the time called The King Kong Show. It was a Saturday morning cartoon for kids, and it's terrible. It's fucking
it's
terrible.
Awful. Actually, fuck it. Every animated Kong show is fucking terrible.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree.
Which is why I have no hope for the new Kong show, live action Kong show they're making.
I do.
I have no hope. 3 strikes, you're out, buddy.
Anyway, so Rankin Bass approached Toho and asked them, "Hey, we want to." Justin says, especially Kong King of the Apes. You have a brother here, Jack.
So migraine right went bananas. God, that show sucked.
Oh, fuck me.
So I'm like, yeah, fuck this show.
See, I actually kind of like it.
See, you're more on par with the Kong fans who like all the weird sci-fi comic book shit in those movies.
Damn fucking straight, especially Kong doesn't die. That's why I say Kong Skull Island is the best Kong movie. Anyway, so where was I? Oh yeah, with Rankin Bass came to Toho and said, we wanna join forces with you and make a Japanese King Kong movie in the hopes of Toho making their own King Kong franchise. So they hired Jun Fukuda and they hired Shinichi Sekizawa, and they got him a script called Operation Robinson Crusoe: King Kong vs. Ebra, and Rankin Bass apparently said, "Fuck this shit. This is not our King Kong show. We're pulling the plug." That movie ended up becoming Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster in kind of an infamous, obvious issue.
In terms of the Godzilla films, is probably one of my more guilty pleasures because I don't mind that film.
I don't mind it either.
It's a fun movie. It's fun.
Yeah, it is.
It's a good Godzilla movie to put on for the kids.
Oh, yeah. Though, admittedly, I also... There is a part of me that would have loved to see that movie as a King Kong film. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, yeah, me too, because it'd be him fucking fighting Mothra and shit.
So that movie ended up becoming Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster, and Rankin Bass approached Toho again, saying, "We've invested money into you. You've already given us a shit script, but give us another one. We'll try again." So they hired Ishiro Honda and they hired Takashi Kimura. They got him a script, and Rankin Bass said, "This movie is still crap, but it's more reminiscent of the show. Go ahead and make this." So Tomiyuki Tanaka said, "Ishiro Honda, make King Kong Escapes." And it was at this point where Ishiro Honda at this time was really struggling to find some type of reason to go on with Toho. He was struggling with his career. He was getting tired of kaiju movies because Jack here is nowhere near as much of a Toho or Godzilla fan as he is a Kong fan. So I imagine that you're not too privy with a lot of the behind the scenes details.
Yeah, I'm not one. I don't know much about the behind-the-scenes details on any of the Godzilla films. I mean, I like Godzilla, but I'm not as much in terms of, like, the history and the knowledge. Like, my only, like, kind of exposure to the Godzilla behind-the-scenes stuff has mostly been through YouTube.
Fair enough. So, Ishiro Honda at this time, he was struggling with his career, and it's understandable because this is the same guy who, not counting his non-tokusatsu movies, Ishiro Honda, from 1954 to 1975, made 25 tokusatsu and kaiju movies.
God damn, what was all the shit in between?
Melodramas and documentaries and docudramas.
He made a lot of fucking movies.
Yeah, not counting his non-Godzilla and kaiju movies. He made 25 movies in a span of 21 years. Which is insane.
He's like the Roger Corman of Japan.
I wouldn't say that, but okay. So anyway, Shiro Honda wasn't really interested in making this movie, even though he, like Eiji Tsuburaya, the man who did the special effects, was a big fan of the original King Kong. What kind of sort of sparked his interest in this film was the fact that there was going to be American actors in this film. And Ishiro Honda was good with working with American actors. I mean, he did quite a few tokusatsu movies where...
You know what? I mean, Ishiro, this is the kind of movie that I think Ishiro Honda was like, fuck it, they give me my sacred rice wine, let's do this shit. Fuck it, they gave me my sake, let's do this shit.
Well, I have a few choice words to say about Ishiro Honda and Takashi Kimura when I get to my cons, but I'll talk about Takashi Kimura for just a second here. This movie was written by Takashi Kimura, kind of one of the more infamous writers in Japanese films. This movie should have been written by Shinichi Sekizawa, and this movie so badly should have been directed by Jun Fukuda. And Jack, in case you don't know, Jun Fukuda was the guy who he directed a lot of the campier Godzilla movies. He directed Sea Monster, Son of Godzilla, Gigan, Megalon, and Mechagodzilla.
So he directed most of the shitty ones, and then the one good one.
Depends on your definition of shitty, because the only shitty Godzilla movie in my eyes that Fukuda did was Megalon.
Well, did he do Godzilla's Revenge?
No, that was Ishiro Honda.
My God, that poor man.
He kind of did it against his will. But that's a whole different story entirely for another day.
That was the movie where he's like, fuck it, they gave me my Jack Daniels, let's do this shit.
Anyway, so Takashi Kimura wrote this movie for some fucking reason. Takashi Kimura was a very pessimistic individual. He did not believe in group mentalities. He very much cared for individuals. He hated his life. He hated Tokyo. He hated Toho. He liked Ishiro Honda, but that's about it. That's the only thing in his life that he liked. He liked to write. He wrote a lot of the darker and more, just dark-natured tokusatsu and kaiju movies. Like, for example, he wrote the original Rodan. He wrote Matango, which Matango is probably his best script. He wrote Godzilla vs. Hedorah. He wrote Destroy All Monsters. And for some fucking reason, he wrote King Kong Escapes. And it just makes no fucking sense to me why Ishiro Honda went with Takashi Kimura to write this movie, with it being as campy and cheesy and fun as it is. If Shinichi Sekizawa wrote this movie, it would have been leaps and bounds better than the finished product.
That would have actually taken it seriously and maybe make it look like a goddamn King Kong movie.
Yes.
But, you know what? I've always wanted to see Toho do a proper remake of Kong around maybe the Heisei era. Like, can you imagine a Heisei era remake of King Kong?
Well, Takashi Kimura was dead by that point, but, okay.
No, but I mean, like, if Toho said, we're gonna do a remake of Kong, and we're gonna have the whole story and everything, but it's all in Japan, and we're doing it in the Heisei era.
Well, they tried. You and I know that, Justin Tank says King Kong Lives is the closest we ever got to Heisei Kong. He's kind of right.
Well, that or 76.
But you and I both know that they tried. In the 90s, they tried to remake King Kong vs. Godzilla. Then they tried to make Godzilla vs. Mechanicong. Then it ended up being the shitfest that is Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah.
I think if anything, they should have... I heard something how they were going to try to use the same suit design that was in Kong 76 for that.
I don't know about that.
I've heard rumors that was the case. They were going to try to get Rick Baker to redesign the suit and use that for the Heisei Godzilla movie.
That would have been kind of cool.
That would have been great.
I agree. So, with all that out of the way, let's get into the plot of King Kong Escapes. no, unfortunately, we did not get the chance to rewatch the movie because we were just so busy. But I've seen the movie quite a few times, and this movie does have a pretty simple plot. And I'll have Jack here help me out to fill in some cliff notes if I miss anything. But like I said, this movie's plot is pretty simple, which is both a good and funny enough. Baker worked on a design for the unmade Godzilla King of the Monsters in 3D, which never fell through. Did he really?
Yeah, Rick Baker.
Oh yeah, he did.
He was gonna make the suit for that.
Shame.
Exactly.
Shame.
It's the same reason why. It's the same thing with Stan Winston. He was gonna create the Godzilla design for the '94 version with the Griffin, and they never used that design. What the fucking design in a Godzilla movie?
That sounded like a really, really dark, good Godzilla movie. Anyway,
have you seen the design for that, like the maquette of that Godzilla?
I think I have, but it was a while ago. No, not the Griffin from Latitude Zero. That's an entirely different subject, Justin. No, not the Griffin from Latitude Zero. Just no. Anyway, so the plot of King Kong Escapes. I want to also get this out of the way. King Kong Escapes does not take place in the Showa continuity. It's not in continuity with King Kong vs. Godzilla. It's not in continuity with the Showa Godzilla movies. This film really has its own continuity in and of itself. It's the only movie that takes place in its own continuity, but it's not in continuity with the Showa series. It's its own thing and should not be considered part of the Showa timeline. So
the part that bugs me, though, is the fact that, like, the only recurring creature that shows up in later Godzilla movies or other stuff is Gorosaurus. And so, like, okay, well, if it's not in canon, where did Gorosaurus come from in the Godzilla universe?
Well, you could say it may have just been a different species that may just so happen to look the same, because the King Kong Escapes version of Gorosaurus is smaller than the Godzilla version. The Godzilla version is 50 meters in height. This one's about 25 meters in height. Ish.
Yeah, and I was really hoping that with Kong Skull Island they bring in Gorosaurus.
Yeah, me too, but I still like the skull crawlers. They're nasty little bastards.
They're pretty good.
So anyway, the plot of King Kong Escapes. The film begins with Doctor Who, played by Eze Yamamoto. I'm gonna smack the shit out of you.
Every review has been done to death. Moving on.
Yes. Well, it's pronounced H-U, not W-H-O.
Dr.
Oh, Justin Tang says, best Doctor Who impression ever. Moving on. So Doctor Who, H-U, played by Eze Yamamoto, the same guy who played the toy maker from Godzilla's Revenge.
Wait, it should be Doctor Who. It should be Doctor Ho.
No. Just no. If that's the case, it should be Doctor Huh.
Doctor what?
Because
like,
H-U.
Oh, H-U. Okay, I thought.
What you think I said? H-O?
Yeah.
Also he was also the Mu priest in Atragon. I've still yet to rewatch Atragon. Anyway, Doctor Who has created a robotic version of Kong, being Mecha Kong, the second Toho robot kaiju to be made. First being Moguera in the original. Justin says, "Where are my Tohos at?" Ugh.
God damn it.
That's just terrible. That's just terrible.
God damn it, that's a good one.
Hi, Movie Buff. Movie Buff is here.
Hello.
So, Doctor Who has his own cliche, stereotypical evil henchman brigade in the North Pole, and he has built a robotic version of King Kong to dig out something in the Earth called Element X, which is never explained what the fuck this shit is.
You know what it is? It's the magic shit that Santa Claus uses, and so Doctor Who and his minions just kick Santa out. It's the Mickey Rooney Santa from fucking Santa Claus is Coming to Town. He's like, who the fuck are you? And they just kick him out. And not to mention, in the English dub of King Kong Escapes, Doctor Who's voice actor is the same guy, I swear, who voices the Burglarmeister in Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
It is. It's the same guy, Paul Frees.
Paul Frees, yeah. It's fucking Burglarmeisters are getting revenge against Santa.
Yes. Kong's mine now.
That needs to sound more Russian.
I have created my own version of Kong, Madam X, to dig out Element X and use it to power our weapons so we can take over the world and get my revenge on the UN.
Where's my vodka?
Where is my goddamn vodka? Mecha Kong, get my goddamn vodka. And don't crush it. You did it once before, and I have never forgiven you for it.
Justin Tag is like more like Element Triple X.
Oh yeah, you saw that. Anyway, so goddamn. Keep getting sidetracked. Stop fucking making me laugh. So Doctor Who has created his own robotic version of King Kong to dig out Element X, and he sends Robot Kong on his first mission to try to extract it. And the radiation, I'm just going to call it radiation, fuck it, it's a radioactive material. The radiation from the Element X is so strong that it messes up with Mecha Kong's circuits and it ends up shorting out. At the same time, a scientific team on their way to the UN Science Committee breaks down near Mondo Island, which is the island where King Kong lives. Three main characters of the film go aboard Mondo Island just to do some research. Road Reason...
Kong at this point has been on 3 separate islands. Skull Island, Burrow Island, and Mondo Island. How does he travel from island to island?
He swims. It's funny because apes don't like water. Anyway,
He takes Air Mothra.
No, Mothra Lift.
Yeah. Mothra Airlines.
Or Mothra Uber.
Yeah.
Uber Mothra. Anyway, so, anyway, there's Road Reason, who plays Carl Nelson, who's best character in the film, hands down.
He's basically the Carl Denham part. He's the Carl Denham guy.
Just not
in the movie.
Just not quite as charismatic, but still, he's a good actor. There's Linda Miller, who is Kong's Fay Ray in this movie. Oh, God, Linda Miller.
Okay, here's the thing. As an actress, physically, she doesn't look half bad.
She's cute. She's cute, yes.
They don't look half bad. But
Kong!
Dubber! The dub! Oh my god!
Kong! King Kong!
I'm acting!
Yes, for those of you who don't know, Linda Miller actually was dubbed over by a different actress because apparently her acting was so bad that it just made everyone facepalm and cringe. Even Ishiro Honda. Oh, Justin says, "Fuck me!"
No, that's the porno version called Kinky Kong,
which you have to review.
Anyway, to a YouTube near you.
Anyway, and there's also Akira Takarada playing... Oh, shit, what the hell is his name? I gotta look it up. Lieutenant Commander Jiro Nomura, who is the... There actually is a porno called King Dong, Justin. And...
Justin, go look up the Cinema Snaps review.
Oh, it's hysterical.
It's hysterical, but yeah, so... who's the other guy?
Nomura. He's essentially like the Jack Driscoll character, as bland and boring as usual.
Much. He's probably more bland than all the Jacks combined. What is it? He doesn't really do anything.
Except just be a backup guy dude or guy character. So they show up.
Like, you know what it feels like? He feels like the Blue Ranger of any Power Ranger Super Sentai thing. He's like the one Ranger you honestly really don't give a shit about.
Nah, that's always the Yellow Ranger.
Nah, people
I
like
would
the
say
Yellow
that
Ranger, but
I would definitely say that there are Power Ranger and Super Sentai seasons where the Blue Ranger is a central character, like Deca Ranger, for example. But anyway, that's Super Sentai. This is King Kong shits. Oh, did I say that wrong? Sorry. So they come aboard Mondo Island, and they get out of their like hovercraft thing, and they start to wander around. They leave. Susan Watson, that's her name.
Native guy, don't they?
Oh yeah, they find the native guy first, and they discover he's speaking in some language, and they hear the word Kong, and which confirms that Kong is living on this island. So Nomura and Nelson decide to go off into the jungle to do some exploring, and they leave Susan at the hovercraft. Gorosaurus shows up and starts to, give her some shit. And her loud, screechy-ass screams wakes up the mighty Kong. So he...
Why does he look like a complete hobo?
Let's save our thoughts on the suit till we get to the cons, please, because we'll be here all day.
It's like, it literally looks like he woke up from a hangover. He's like, what the fuck? Oh, for fuck's sakes.
So, Kong awakens, he exits his cave, and he discovers Susan running around. He picks her up, and Gorosaurus shows up and challenges Kong. And so Kong puts... Someone's calling you.
Yeah, I turned that off, don't worry.
So he puts Susan in a tree, and they proceed to do a reenactment of the King Kong versus T-Rex fight from 1933. And honestly, it's a fun fight.
It's a good fight. It's really good. I mean, you know what? And granted, too, Gorosaurus is honestly one of the best kaiju suits I've ever seen Toho do at that time. And I feel like, again, if Kong 76 decided to go for dinosaurs, do what fucking Toho did and just do the same kind of design.
That's really my only issue with Kong 76, is that there's nothing for Kong to fight.
Well, the snake fight's just nah.
It's dumb. But anyway, that's a different movie. So, Kong gets to do a fight with Gorosaurus. It's an entertaining battle, and he subdues Gorosaurus for a moment, and he goes to pick up Susan. Susan escapes and goes back to the hovercraft, and
then he fights a giant snake. Again,
I'll get to that. I'll get to that in a second. I'll get to that in a second. So the three characters get back into their hovercraft and try to escape. Kong kills Gorosaurus by prying his jaws open and letting foam come out, because I guess they didn't want to use blood. And then he gets into a fight with a...
Have a fucking seizure.
Anyway, so Kong gets into a fight with a giant sea serpent that was trying to, do something to the hovercraft, which they used a different suit for that scene.
You want to give me a hand?
Okay, give me a minute. Jack, take over.
Alright, I'm going to take over here. So, basically, with, as Nick was saying, the Kong suit, essentially, they changed the heads where it looks more like a mascot head. And it's really awkward. I'll admit, even the suit is, really shitty. And as much as it's better than the original Kong suit from Kong vs. Godzilla, it's still kind of crappy. So Kong basically fights this giant serpent and then ends up, essentially, going to the submarine. And Susan is trying to calm him down, even though he keeps shaking the submarine like a bath toy. And Linda Miller's like, no, Kong, I eat and sleep on the ship and everything. So, he wants Susan so bad, and she keeps, saying, no, I gotta stay with my crew and everything. And eventually they retreat from the island and then go back to the United Nations to report on and report on the Kong situation. And Carl Nelson makes this really awkward comment that's just kind of like, especially today, it does not hold up. It's this kind of like sexist remark where he says, Kong is a male and Susan is, well, see for yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. That is not, it's kind of, the joke just does not hold up today. I'll quote Lindsay Ellis on this when she did the loose cannon on King Kong. Vagina equals laughing. So anyway, I'll just point out some of the stuff we're at right now. So, as far as I know, so far in the film, it feels like a regular King Kong movie. They go to the island, they encounter Kong, they encounter some dinosaurs, and then they leave the island, but in this case without Kong. So, basically, Doctor Who gets word of Kong and decides, I want the real Kong, rather than this battery-operated piece of crap of metallic junk that I have using to build the Element X, because he figures with a real Kong, he could essentially have better control over him to get the Element X. Which, given the fact that Element X is radioactive, doesn't really make much sense, especially given the fact that, like, if he uses the real Kong, the radiation would fuck up Kong's head even more, and who knows, maybe make him grow or something. So, hey, maybe this is, like, even a prequel to King Kong versus Godzilla. I don't know. Yeah, Nick had to go do something for a sec. I'm taking over here. This is Jack from BigJackFilms. So I'm just taking over the review for a little bit because he had to go do something. So anyway, what was I going to say? I'm watching the live stream as I'm looking at this. So basically, Doctor Who wants the real Kong and sets off on a expedition to basically capture the real Kong. They kill the native, and like Doctor Who is very casual about it. He's like, "Ooh, the native's like, oh no, you can't take Kong," and like Doctor Who's just like, "Oh, Kong is mine now. Kong is mine now," and just shoots the native in the head. Here's Nick. Here he comes.
Yes, I need to get my own do not disturb sign on my door when I'm doing these, because goddamn is it annoying when he barges in.
No problem. We're at the part where Doctor Who basically captures Kong.
Oh yeah,
shoots the native square in the head.
Yes, Kong is mine now.
God. That actor's having so much fun.
Yes, I'll get to that in just a minute. So, Doctor Who captures Kong and brings him to the North Pole. He also captures Susan, Carl, and Nomura and brings them to his North Pole base.
Yes.
Not as awesome as Malik.
Because that doesn't sound intimidating at all. The North Pole.
I don't know, Justin. I don't know if he's as awesome as Malik from Latitude Zero. I definitely have to give that some thought.
So, basically, they tried to make Kong basically control his mind, and it doesn't work because Kong looks like he's taken too much sleeping pills, some Tylenol PM. So basically, Doctor Who's just like, "You big egg, you dumb eggs," and insults the shit out of him, and realizes, hey, if we can't get Kong to talk, let's get the heroes to make him talk. Or work, or whatever.
Yeah, they try to have Kong dig out Element X, and it's kind of successful at first, but then the radiation is it's just too strong, and it either overrides with the mind control device that they put on Kong, so he regains his mind again. He rips the shit off, and he goes to bang his way out of a cell, but there's a big door there that keeps him trapped for a little bit. So Doctor Who tries to convince.
With that trap door next to him, you think behind him the fucking Rancor's gonna come out or some shit.
I know, right? So anyway, Doctor Who tries to get Nomura and Susan to try to convince Kong to do what he says, And Nomura and Watson, they keep saying no, so Nomura traps them inside a room where the temperature keeps dropping. Yes, Omega Picture.
To mention the scene where what's her name, Madam X, basically seduces Carl.
Tries to.
He seduces Carl to do something, and you keep expecting Dustin Hoffman to come out like, well, Mrs. Madam X, you're trying to seduce me.
Oh my god. Played by the talented Mie Hama of Bond fame. Yes, that is true. She was a Bond girl.
He was channeling the Bond. Was this before or after Bond? I'm not too sure.
I'm not entirely sure. It may have been after, but I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, so...
Sure, Honda was probably like, okay, bitch, you were in James Bond, just do the Bond thing. I don't care. They gave me my sake. Let's do this shit.
Oh, apparently it's the same year. Same year as You Only Live Twice.
Okay.
Anyway, so Nomura and Susan are inside this room where the temperature keeps dropping, and Who is trying to convince... or trying to have Nelson do something, so they have a game of chess. Kong eventually breaks his way out of the cage, and he erupts out of the the North Pole base, and he starts to run away. So Doctor Who sends Mecha Kong after Kong. Kong jumps in the water, which has got to be sub-zero temperatures, and starts swimming away. Of course, Mecha Kong doesn't dive in because he's a robot too.
You wonder how King Kong survives the temperatures of water? I guess he took lessons from the Yeti giant of the 21st century. Oh, that's funny. That's very funny. Okay, moving on. So, basically, Kong enters Tokyo and starts...
Which does not make sense geographically.
So he starts running amok, and essentially they roll the stock footage from previous kaiju movies. Roll that evacuation stock footage that we are known to do constantly.
Yes.
And Kong and the army comes in, which, funny enough, they used the same shots from King Kong versus Godzilla in that scene as well.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me. So Doctor Who shows up at Tokyo Harbor, and... yes, Omega Picture, I do know that this movie is based on a cartoon. We said that in the beginning of this video. Anyway.
The movie itself is a fucking cartoon.
Yeah, pretty much. Doctor Who is pretty much a cartoon villain. Anyway, so Doctor Who brings his henchmen and the three main characters to Tokyo. However, Madam X helps Carl, Susan, and Nomura escape, and they reunite with their, Yeah, exactly. Hokkaido is closest geographically to the North Pole, but whatever. It's a kaiju movie. It has to take place in Tokyo. Whatever. So who shows up?
So
Madam X allows the three main characters to escape. They reunite with the army, and Doctor Who sends Mecha Kong after Kong to recapture him and bring him back. Kong is running amok, and Susan shows up and calms down Kong. It's actually a bit of a nice little scene. I'm not gonna lie, because
We're friends.
Well, I mean, I thought it was a nice little scene where she was reaching out to Kong to be with him or some shit. I thought it was a nice little touch. But then Mecha Kong shows up, and Kong puts down Susan. They proceed to get into a fight. The first half of this fight is fun because they're on the ground and they're going back and forth, beating the shit out of each other. And one of my favorite lines is one of Doctor Who's henchmen says, "The real Kong seems quicker. My Kong won't tire." Love it.
Oh!
But unfortunately, Mecha Kong is sent after Susan. Mecha Kong grabs Susan and climbs Tokyo Tower and proceeds to become one of the most boring monster movie fights I've ever seen in my life.
Well, you know what would have made it better if they brought in the fucking Air Force?
No, it would have just been a better fight. Well, actually, no, yeah, it would have been, but if they stayed on the ground, it would have been a much better fight. But no,
Yeah,
they decide to...
Tokyo Tower just felt very stupid and cheap.
I feel like Ishiro Honda and Eiichi Tsuburaya were more focused on paying homage to Kong 33.
Yeah, considering Ishiro Honda and Tomoyuki Tanaka was involved with this too, right?
Oh yeah, he produced pretty much every single kaiju movie from the original Gojira up until his death in Rebirth of Mothra.
Yeah, so they just wanted to pay tribute to one of their favorite films.
Which is all well and good, but there's a time and a place. And this was not the time nor the place. So, Madam X shows up and sabotages Mecha Kong's control. She ends up getting shot in the process. Mecha Kong goes haywire and falls from Tokyo Tower. Before that, he drops Susan, but Kong catches her and she and puts her to safety on top of Tokyo Tower. Though she does something really fucking stupid, and I'll get to that when I get to my cons. So Mecha Kong is sabotaged, and he falls to his doom, and reminiscent of Kong 33, and explodes.
Well, he doesn't really explode more than he does just fall apart.
He falls apart, then he explodes.
Yeah.
So then Kong, the next morning, goes to stop Doctor Who's ship, Tokyo Harbor, that morning, which he does. He climbs aboard the ship and takes a hold of the propeller and starts beating the shit out of the ship, killing Doctor Who in the process, supposedly. And
but you think Doctor Who, given his plan has failed, would leave immediately?
I know, right? That
night, instead of waiting in the morning. Why?
Stupid. And then the film ends with Kong swimming back to Mondo Island, thus ending the film.
I think he's had enough of what we call civilization.
Oh, God, this fucking movie. Oh, yeah, just like when Kong uses the propeller against the Skullcrawler.
There's some good elements in this film, I will admit.
There is.
The fight scenes are honestly really fun. For, a movie at that period, they were fun. But honestly, and the score's not half bad either.
Oh, yeah, it's Akira Fukube. What do you expect?
Yeah, but aside from that, and, the villain playing Doctor Who, he's just having fun. The actors seem like they're trying to have fun with what they're doing.
Looks like Omega Picture is leaving us. Go ahead.
Overall, aside from that, it's just a weak film. It's a very weak film.
Well, no, I'll save that for last, but I actually do have a lot to say about this movie in terms of pros and cons. Let's go to the pros. Oh, I see what you mean, Omega Picture. Okay. Road Reason, like I said, as Carl Nelson, he's the best character in the film, without a doubt. He's the guy who you can kind of relate to the most. He's the guy who's trying to keep control of a bit of a messy situation. He's trying to save the world and protect people best he can. He's the proactive hero character of the movie, and I personally do latch onto him quite well because he's relatable. He's a good actor. The guy who Road Reason does a great job playing Carl Nelson. He can tell this movie is shit, and he's clearly having fun with this film. But overall, Road Reason he does a really good job as Carl Nelson. Pro number 2 is Doctor Who. Oh my god.
He's like something out of a Batman movie.
A Batman / James Bond movie.
No, it is. He's like Nuclear Man meets Dr. Frankenstein.
It's actually not a bad... Well, actually, okay, Nuclear Man is better because he actually has superpowers. But, yeah, Doctor Who...
Like the look of Nuclear Man.
Doctor Who... I do not think that Doctor Who is the greatest villain of all time. That honor, to me, still goes to Ultraman Belial, but that's just me. But Doctor Who...
You know what he is? He's the Japanese version of Director Krennic from Rogue One.
No.
Okay, well, he looks like something off the set of a Star Wars movie where he just walked off the set of the Empire.
Well, you gotta love his costume. He's always wearing pure black, and he has his hair combed back, and it's gray, but also has streaks of black in it. He's got terrible teeth. He sometimes wears a cape and black gloves. Oh, his costume is glorious. Not as glorious, admittedly, as Malik from Latitude Zero. Kind of looking like Asian Dracula. Looking like Asian Dracula a little bit. Yeah, before Toho actually did 4 or 5 Dracula movies.
He's the Japanese version of Christopher Lee's Dracula.
A little bit. Just without the badass imposingness.
Oh, this would be something I think Christopher Lee would have loved to play in.
Oh, God, yes. I think he would have loved to play that. May he rest in peace. God damn, I miss Christopher Lee. But Doctor Who, he's so fun to watch. He is so fun to watch. He's totally chewing up the scenery when playing Doctor Who. You can tell he's having fun. By the way, we are reviewing the American cut of this movie. Yes, there is a Japanese. There is a Japanese version of this movie. It's 8 minutes longer, but I don't trust torrents, and I only have the American version. So, and
what's the extra 8 minutes?
I don't know, but I know that the extra 8 minutes took place in the slow middle. But I'll get to that in a minute. But Doctor Who is so much fun to watch, and you cannot watch Doctor Who without the voice of Paul Frees coming out of him. You just can't.
Exactly.
Pro number 3, Madam X. She's probably the second best character in this film. She's from a shady country. It's never really established what country it is exactly. It's got to be Asian.
Maybe North Korea or something.
Possibility, yeah. But she's from
maybe Vietnam. Maybe Vietnam, because given the shit that was going on back then.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was. That's kind of what I was thinking most of the time too. Is that she's from Vietnam, but it's never said. But she's from a shady country, and at first she just wants to be the stereotypical evil bitch, but then she realizes the error and madness of Doctor Who's ways, and decides to go against.
Seductive.
Yeah, she is. She is a very attractive woman. I'm not gonna lie. But she's a good character. You can tell the actress playing her is trying to do her best with this role and try to give something with this role. And she for the most part she does a good job. I think she's a little underutilized, if you ask me. Like I'm not a big fan of the dub actress for.
Yeah, she's like going for a mix of Japanese and German.
Yeah, it doesn't really
like a German seductor or whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't really fit, but she still does a decent job. Pro number 4, Mecha Kong. Oh my god, I love Mecha Kong. In my opinion, he's the second most underrated Toho robot kaiju. The most underrated being Mogera, both the Showa and Heisei version. But damn,
I think he's cool, but I'm sorry, his face, he looks like Donkey Kong.
He does! Oh my god, somebody who finally agrees with me. He looks like
Nintendo should make a video game called Robot Donkey Kong.
And just use Mecha Kong's likeness.
Exactly.
I love Mecha Kong so much. I love the suit. I'll get to special effects in a minute, but I love the suit. You could definitely... I certainly do buy it as being a robot. And it certainly is a robot version of Kong. It's a giant robot gorilla. I mean, what else can it be? My only issue with Mecha Kong, though, is... Well, actually, no, there's 2 issues. One is, I don't think Mecha Kong has that many power, or I don't think Mecha Kong has...
He doesn't really have any weapons at all.
He doesn't have enough powers. He doesn't really have any weapons. He has those napalm grenades, and he has these high-intensity lights in his eyes, which they call those laser beams, but they're just bright spotlights.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
He has that annoying transmission.
Yes. The sound that...
That's so annoying.
Yeah, it is. That's another issue that I have. And I also I don't like the fact that Mecha Kong is barely used in this fucking film. I think he only has maybe about 6 minutes of screen time in the entire movie. And this is a 98-minute long film. No. 96-minute long film. Excuse me. Sounds like Tetsuo's invention in Monster Zero. Oh my god, yes it does. Not quite as annoying, but still, it is kind of annoying. The Mecha Kong is so awesome. The next pro, I think the production values for this movie are also pretty good. I like the sets. I like the
Well, minus the Kong suit.
Well, I'll get to that when I talk about special effects. But the production values, I like the sets. The jungle cinematography does look very beautiful. It looks very well shot. It's not... Well, yeah, of course, Mecha Kong has great strength, but that's given. He's a robot. But anyway, the cinematography for the island is very beautiful to look at. The sets for the North Pole in Japan, the miniatures are well done. The sets for the North Pole are well done. Definitely it looks very 60s Batman-ish, which is both a good and bad. Actually, no, it's a good thing because it just makes this movie feel more fun. And you can tell this movie was co-financed by American money because the sets are a little bigger and a little more extravagant, and also this movie was shot in Panavision instead of Toho scope, which allowed the color and the photography and the cinematography of this movie to be much more crisp and much more colorful and much more pleasant to look at. So overall, the production values are quite good. The next pro is the monster battles. I do think are, well, all two of them, but the monster battles are pretty fun. Kong's fight with Gorosaurus is probably the best scene in the film, as far as I'm concerned. Because it's like a better version of the 33 fight. Yes, I said that. It's better.
Yeah, I mean, the Gorosaurus fight is pretty fun.
And the first half of Kong's fight with Mecha Kong in Tokyo is fun, but the second half is crap. I'll get to that in just a minute. But overall, the monster battles are fun. And the last pro is, aside from the Kong suit, I'll get to that in a minute, I think the special effects are pretty good. Because like I said, the miniatures are well made. The Mecha Kong suit itself, it's very well made. It's very well constructed. Overall, the special effects are pretty good. The wire work is also, what kind of little bit there is, the wire work is well done as well. But overall, the effects are pretty good. Even though I think they're a little minimalist, but still. They're not bad. They're not bad at all, actually. Oh boy, let's get to the cons. Oh man, I'm gonna have a lot to say here.
The suit, the fucking suit. It looks like a giant walking turd.
Let me save that, please.
Oh my god, it's fucking horrible.
Let's start with the other issues with the film. The film's pacing is what I call imbalanced.
It's really off.
The first act, and the third act, they're fine. They're reasonably paced. Oh yeah, the giant sea snake. Actually, the giant sea snake looks kind of shitty, if you ask me.
It looks better. I'll admit, it looks maybe a little bit better than the one in '76.
Yes, true, but still, it doesn't look that great. But anyway, the first act is paced fine, but that second act, oh god, is just slow.
That's one of the reasons, like, every time I watch it and I get halfway through to that halfway point, I'm like, I need to turn this off. It's so boring. Nothing happens.
Yeah. I mean, granted, if you kind of just watch it as a character study and as a character film, you can get into it a little more. But if you just want to watch a fun kaiju movie, the second act of this movie is really not your cup of tea. Other than Madam X, Doctor Who, and Road Reason, all the human characters are bland. Akira Takarada as Nomura, he's boring. He's boring. Boring as all living shit.
Oh, yeah, like the Jack Driscoll character?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I don't get... He's more bland than the other Jack Driscolls I've seen in the previous Kong films.
Damn, is that saying something, too?
That's saying something, because, like, Jack Driscoll, like, you know what? The Jack in fucking Mighty Kong was better, was more relatable.
I wouldn't say that, because at least Nomura in this movie, he tries to be proactive in the situation. Like, he takes a gun and he shoots out Mecha Kong's hypnotized device. That's more than I could say for Jack in the Mighty Kong.
Oh, it's tough, man.
I know it's tough, but it's not like Akira Takarada does a bad job of acting as Nomura. But still, his character is boring and flatter than a plateau. And then we get to the big elephant in the room, and that is Linda Miller as Susan Watson.
Well, I won't blame the actress. I'll blame the dubber. I'll blame the dubber on that one because she is fucking terrible. It's not Linda Miller's fault. From what I heard at cons, Linda Miller is extremely nice and really active with the fans of that movie. And I don't know if she's even said that she even agrees, yeah, the person who dubbed me was fucking horrible.
She is an attractive woman, Omega Picture. Yes, I'll give her that. But yeah, her dubber makes watching her performance almost impossible because of how bad it is. Her dub is so. If you ask me, if all the. Yes, Justin, her dubber can go fuck a cactus. Prickly herpes. If all the bad dubs in all of the dub products in this world, where it'd be like Hong Kong dubs or bad anime dubs, like the first dub for Akira, if all those bad dubs in the world took a shit in the same toilet, in that toilet is the dub for Linda Miller in King Kong Escapes. It's the Deathstalker of bad dubs.
It kind of sucks.
That's an understatement.
It's pretty bad. I mean, it's hard. Again, nothing against Linda Miller. I think she looks the part, and she is kind of cute. She reminds me of the actress who played that girl. Cutesy about the character.
Sorry about that. Your audio went really bad. Could you say that again?
She reminds me a lot of the actress who played Batgirl in the '60s Batman show, where it's just kind of that cutesy mentality to her. I feel like it's weird if they remade this film, especially in kind of an anime style. She would totally be one of those high school girls that would just join the adventure because what the fuck ever.
You're probably right, unfortunately. But Linda Miller, aside from her bad dubbing, her character is just a complete idiot. She's a damsel in distress, which I hate. I hate damsel in distress characters, and now they've just been ruined for me. I hate damsel in distress characters because they're fucking useless. And they create fake tension in the film. She's the one who goes...
Princess Peach was more usable.
Yes. She goes off wandering around and runs into Gorosaurus, creating fake tension. Actually, no. I think Gorosaurus was walking around, but she was walking around too, and not just staying with the hovercraft. The biggest example of... compared to the ladies in the Mysterians, that's saying something, but... The biggest example of her being stupid is in during the final fight with Kong versus Mecha Kong on Tokyo Tower. Kong catches her when Mecha Kong drops her and puts her on a ledge and continues climbing. She's relatively safe there. She decides to climb over the railing and try to climb up a ladder to join this fight for some reason, where there's 20,000 metric tons of kaiju rumbling around on top of this tower. She ends up falling and damns near fall off a ledge to her death. Why on God's green earth would you decide to do that when there's two giant monsters rumbling around and hopping around on this tower where it's amazing. It's amazing she didn't get vibrated off alone.
Vibrated off? That sounds so wrong.
I know, that's why I did that. It's amazing she didn't fall to her death already, but she decides to go out on this ledge, and she has to have Namora come and rescue her, and that's focused on more than the actual fucking fight. That's why I hate the second half of this fight between Kong and Mecha Kong, is that they focus on the humans more than the monsters. Why? Especially on a dumbass like this. That's why I can't stand Yuri in GMK, because she's fucking stupid. She keeps going in the middle of monster action to get herself in danger, and people have to come and rescue her. It's because of her stupidity that she gets in danger when Godzilla and Baragon were fighting. She gets in danger when Godzilla and King Ghidorah are fighting at the end of the film. She keeps putting herself in danger, putting herself in the middle of a monster fight, just so she can get some footage on her fucking camcorder. That is why I hate Yuri in GMK. And I can't stand Kumi Mizuno sometimes in War of the Gargantuas, and I can't stand her in Frankenstein vs. Baragon in a couple scenes either, because she keeps putting herself in danger. Linda Miller does the exact same thing. I absolutely cannot stand characters who do that in films. It's fucking asinine.
It seriously makes no goddamn sense.
Con number 3 is that as much as Doctor Who is fun to watch, the villain plot is pretty fucking cliche. Oh yes, the Kennys and Gamera, the giant monster. Yes, that is another example of that too. Or Toshio, yes. The cliche villain plot sticks out like a sore thumb. It's just really, this is a cookie cutter Saturday morning cartoon villain plot. Granted, this movie was adapted from a Saturday morning cartoon, and this is supposed to be a kid's movie, but damn, even for a kid's movie, this villain plot it makes cliche look cliche.
It's cliche and it's complicated. In my eyes, like even watching it first time, I'm like, I don't understand a lick of this. Like, yeah. Why do you need the element X? Well, okay, is it like a crystal that's an instant nuclear bomb or something? Who are you selling it to? Why do you think it's going to get you to take over the world?
It's never explained.
Yeah, it's the same shit with the fucking, like, there's so many villain plots out there. It's like, it's the same goddamn thing with the principal in the Recess movie. His plot makes no sense.
You want to go into your rant about that? Go right ahead.
No, it's cool. Let's stay on topic with Kong.
Or the villain's plot for Kong, King of the Apes.
Oh, no, it's like, what? Fuck that show. Fuck that show and its fucking ass.
Dum 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 dum
exactly.
Dum 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 dum.
It makes no goddamn sense. Fuck that.
Oh.
The plot doesn't make sense. Now, you know what? Fuck it. Can we talk about the goddamn suit?
Nope, not yet. Well, I've already talked about the second half of the Kong versus Mecha Kong fight, so that's con number 5, or con number, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Con number 4. Okay, I guess we could talk about the terrible Kong suit. That's what I have written down here. Terrible Kong suit. Oh.
Between this and the one from King Kong versus Godzilla, I can't decide which one's worse.
I actually think the 62 suit is worse, because at least this suit looks more gorilla-esque. The 62 suit looks like a fucking baboon / orangutan.
It looks like a walking, talking shit I just took.
Maybe it's your own nerdy turd.
Oh, it's no. You know what it is? It's when I transformed into a giant gorilla in my Kong King of the Apes review. That's the shit I took when I was that giant gorilla, and it became alive.
Gained sentience. Yes, it's no secret that this Kong this Kong suit is just terrible. It's absolutely terrible. The face itself, yes, it looks gorilla-esque, but it also looks like the ugly cousin of the abominable snow monster from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
It's the shit that monster took.
Yes.
And just stuck it on his face, and then look, I'm King Kong. I'm sorry, but like Kong in this movie looks like a walking turd.
Yes. The hands are way too small for a gorilla's anatomy. Gorillas have huge hands. They have huge arms in general, and this Kong has the big chest of gorillas, but it has the really scrawny, skinny arms.
I hate those skinny arms. I hate the skinny hands.
I hate this. Yeah, I hate the skin. They don't move. They're just like props added onto the suit's arms, just so Hiro Nakajima can swing them around. Which, by the way, yes, Kong was played by Hiro Nakajima in this film. Same guy who played Godzilla. Overall, the suit looks. I think the suit just looks. Kong looks like he has mange. I have to agree with Adam Noyes. He looks like he has the worst case of mange I've ever seen in my life.
You know what? I will say this about the suit. I don't know what's worse, that suit or the one from Ape.
Oh, Ape. Because at least there was some sort of effort put into the Escapes suit. Oh, yeah, there's also a scene.
I will say this. The puppet head doesn't look half bad.
Oh, yeah. They actually tried to make it look... Because, animals, or not animals, but yeah, they do. But apes have a lot of facial expressions because they're pretty much us. They use a lot of facial expressions, and they really tried to incorporate that into the puppet. It's still kind of stiff, but at least it's something.
Yeah, it still looks like dick, but it still looks all right.
I agree. There's also during the scene when Kong was fighting the giant snake, Toho for some reason didn't want to get the 67 Kong suit wet, so they decided to use the 62 suit, take the head off the 67 suit, and plop it on the body of the 62 suit, and put her in a
mascot.
It does. It has a really skinny body, really small, skinny body, which that suit wasn't made for Hiro Nakajima, but they put him in there in it anyway. And they plopped the 67 head on, and it looks like a fucking Kong bobblehead.
Oh, yeah, no, it does. It looks like the pop vinyl that I have.
And the mouth doesn't move whatsoever, and that's another thing I hate about a lot of Showa-era monsters, that sometimes when the monsters roar, their mouth doesn't open. That drives me nuts. That happens to Kong all the time in this movie. But especially his mouth hangs open. Like, even when he roars or growls, his mouth doesn't move at all. Drives me absolutely nuts. It looks like a fucking bobblehead. This suit, in the end, is fucking horrendous. It looks like a shit stain. It looks like a mange mess. It looks just like a piece of fucking garbage. But at least it's a little better than 62 suit.
It's shit.
My two biggest problems with this movie, they're tied. And I hate to say this. I really hate to say this. But my biggest problem with this movie is Yoshiro Honda and Takashi Kimura. I hate to say that. Yoshiro Honda should not have directed this movie. Takashi Kimura should not have written this movie. Jun Fukuda should have directed this movie, and Shinichi Sekizawa should have wrote this movie. This is the type of thing that Jun Fukuda and Shinichi Sekizawa would have eaten the ever-living shit out of. Yoshiro Honda was not a good action director. Jun Fukuda is. Takashi Kimura is not a good kids movie writer. Shinichi Sekizawa is. this movie should have been made for Jun Fukuda and Shinichi Sekizawa, but no. Ishiro Honda had to direct this movie, and Takashi Kimura had to write this movie. Okay, if Ishiro Honda directed this movie and Shinichi Sekizawa wrote it, it wouldn't be nearly as much of an issue. But no. Takashi Kimura had to write this. It's the same issue that I have with Latitude Zero. Ishiro Honda is not a good action director. He's good at directing talking scenes, but as far as human action goes, he sucks. The kaiju action, he's kind of okay, but that was more Eiji Tsuburaya's forte. But still, Ishiro Honda really should not have directed this movie, and Takashi Kimura really should not have written this film. Those are my two biggest problems with King Kong Escapes. If Jun Fukuda directed this movie and Shinichi Sekizawa wrote this movie, I would not be giving this movie nearly as much shit as I do. And I'm sure you wouldn't either. And I'm sure many other people would not. But unfortunately, this movie had to be directed by Ishiro Honda. Because of Tomiyuki Tanaka's own stupidity, in my eyes. That was a mouthful. So.
Yeah, it's not a good movie. I would say it's one of the weaker Kong films. And it's just, I don't know, unpleasant. Well, not unpleasant to look at, but it's just more of, it doesn't make sense. It's weak on story. It's, the tone is all over the place. And it just doesn't match the quality of a proper Kong film, honestly.
I agree. To wrap up my thoughts, and to wrap this insanely long review up, my thoughts on King Kong Escapes, even though I went into a big rant, and it seems like I hate this movie, I don't. I enjoyed this movie. It's a fun romp. It's bad, but well, Omega Picture, if you've seen my review of King Kong vs. Godzilla, and you know I don't like the film, there's my thoughts. But my thoughts for King Kong Escapes, it's a fun movie. If you want to put it on and have some friends and just riff the shit out of it, oh, it's good material for that. But even if you want to watch it by yourself and just kind of enjoy the movie, it's good for that too. But there's a lot of problems with the film. It's not one of Ishiro Honda's best movies. It's far from one of Toho's best films. But despite all that, my rating for King Kong Escapes is a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, for me, again, it's probably the weakest of the series. Just watching it again, I just get bored by it, honestly. It doesn't interest me. As a Kong film, it just doesn't match the quality of the other films. I'm not a fan of Kong being the very sci-fi kind of comic book-esque tone to everything. My Kong's more of the classic adventure and the classic, going through the island, find some dinosaurs, capture Kong and bring him back and rampage. But in terms of, there's some good elements. Like, the fight scenes are great, the music's fun, some of the cast is pretty good. But overall, it's probably one of the weaker Kong films, and I'd give it probably a 5 or a 6 out of 10. It's not something I really like to go back and watch, honestly, only if it's like for reference of something or whatever. So, as a Kong fan, I'd say if you're a hardcore, you'll like it, but if you're just looking for a proper movie, you can skip this one.
And just go straight to Kong Skull Island.
Exactly.
So. Oh, man, my voice is hoarse a little bit because of this review. So, look forward to more episodes of my Honda-thon. I'm not going to say what the next review is because Movie Buff Productions, he may be busy, or I may be doing a solo review tomorrow. I do plan to do a review tomorrow, but I don't know what the next film is going to be, so you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Now, if you don't mind me putting a plug in, Nick Jackson's original review of Gojira we're doing currently a remaster of it, and it's going to be premiering on my channel pretty soon. I just need to add the clips and see how it overall looks, and it should be out
within a week
as soon as possible. So you guys on his channel can look forward to that. If anything, you guys can definitely subscribe to this guy, and also subscribe to my channel, Big Jack Films, and you could probably see some future reviews from Nick and himself on my show. So just figured I'd put that plug in.
Yes, and do indeed subscribe to Big Jack Films. He's a really fun reviewer. He plays angry well, but he also plays sincere well. Like, if there's a movie he loves, he'll give you a good review. If there's a movie he hates, he'll still give you a good review. Jaws 3. King of the Apes.
If it's a movie I hate, I will rip it a new asshole.
Kong, King of the Apes.
Fuck that shit! I fucking hate that shit!
This episode is an hour and a half. So look forward to more episodes of my Honda-thon. Post your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Share this video with your friends. Go subscribe to Big Jack Films.
And again, thanks again, man, for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
I hope to have you on more reviews in the future. Oh, Omega Picture says, what's wrong with Kong, King of the Apes? Go watch his review. So I will see you guys in the next one.
Show and you'll find out.